All right, I'm gonna go over the LRZ Keyence sensor. Quick little overview on how this works. We have a few buttons on this sensor. The top, we have our set button, which is right here. And then we have an up and down button. The display is gonna give a numerical value based off of how far away the laser point is on the sensor. So as you see, as we get closer to the sensor, that number goes up. As we go further away, that number goes down. Now, as far as setting the sensor, there's 3 different ways to do it. The simplest, typically, is just background suppression mode. So I'm gonna press and hold this set button for 3 seconds once the laser is on my background. So right now it's hitting this table in the background. I'm gonna hold this down for 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3. It'll flash a number at me. So it just flashed 33. Now I moved this a little bit here. If I hadn't, it would have set the background to be exactly 0. And then you saw the number flashed 33 at me. So as soon as I get to 33 or closer, so 33 or above, my output light comes on. As soon as I dip down below 33, that output comes back off. So the idea of this is every time your part is present, that number jumps up, output's on, it's seeing the part, whether the part's real close, whether the part's far away. As long as it's not seeing the background, so 79, 100, etc., as long as that's above 33, then we're good to go. You're getting your output at seeing the part. Now, if you want to make it a little more sensitive, so let's say you have a smaller part. So we're hopping in here, we're seeing 24, 27. It's below 33, we're not getting that output. We can fine tune that set point. So again, go back to that down button I mentioned before. Just tap that. So start tapping it, don't hold it, but just tap it. We can get all the way down as low as we'd like. Now I'd be a little careful about not getting too close to 0. Remember, 0 is gonna be my background, because if we get too close to that 0, it's just gonna be too sensitive. It's gonna jump back and forth a little bit too much. I usually try to keep it about 8 points or higher. So again, I stopped on the 8. So negative 30 right now. Again, we'll send it back to where it was, to that 0 background or so. If we're above an 8, it's closer than 8, we're gonna see that. So that's how you fine tune it. That's the first way. It's called background suppression. I'd say that's the easiest way to set it up. Again, if you're gonna have a constant background, anything above that background or closer than that background, so apart, it's going to send the output. The second way is to show it a good part and a bad part. So similar, depending on what your application's like, we're just going to use this set button up top. So there's no need to reset the sensor each time you set it. You can just start from scratch and you'll be good to go. So let's say this is where we want the part to be. So I'm going to tap set once. That's the good part. And then here's the bad part, so further away, tap set once again. Now it picked 51 for that time. It set the background again. My sensor is moving because my bracket's not very sturdy. It should be at 0. It said 0, and then my part, which I showed it was around like 100. We'll call it 94 here. It picked a point in between. So again, just to tap this to see what my point was. My point was 51. So it's still working basically the same way as before. 0 is the background, or again, I moved my sensor, so it says 15. 100 is my part. Anywhere between 57 and 100, we're good. If we go further down, it's not gonna see that. It thinks it's not there. It knows it's out of place. So that's called the 2-point set. Again, to do that, all I did, tap once on the part, tap 2 on the background or bad part, and each time, it'll catch exactly where that is. The last way is probably the most confusing. So I really wouldn't use this unless you kind of specifically need this setup. This is called datum mode, which is also known as window mode, meaning you're gonna set a little fine area, a small area, plus or minus certain digits to see. So this is good. Maybe if you are looking for like loop control, and if you have the metal that's supposed to be going down and it might fluctuate up a little, it might fluctuate down a little. this window, this datum mode can be good. Again, it's the most complicated. I wouldn't use it unless you need the window, but here's how we set it up. Basically, we're going to teach it, we're going to show it apart again. And then it's still just using that same set button, which is, as you see, pretty much all you're ever going to use. With showing it like the perfect part. So what we want to like zero out is the perfect part. I'm going to tap 0 once, then I'm going to tap and hold for 3 seconds, 0 again. Now you're going to see this little orange light here on the back popped up. I'm not sure how clear the video is, but it should say DTM for datum, which again is kind of the same as window per se. It zeroes out the part, and real quick, you might have seen it flashed a number at me. That number was 11. So the part was 0. Again, I slightly moved my sensor. The part was 0, so plus or minus 11, we're going to say is good. If it goes outside of that parameter, we're going to get a bad output. So if we get a little bit too close, we get an output. There's the little sweet zone, or from 11 to negative 11. We're still in that zone. But as soon as we go past it, back further than negative 11, we're getting an output. So basically, as long as we're hitting that same spot, we're getting a flash of the light. Now, if you want to actually get an output, so like right now, whenever that light on top here is on, that means 24 volts is being sent to your control, PLC, whatever. If we want to flip-flop that so that we're actually only going to see the part when it's in the perfect spot, and that's when we want the output, that's as easy as right here on the up button. It says up, and it also says 3-second LD/on, or sorry, L/D on. That's for light on, dark on, or normally open, normally closed. So if I want to switch over, I can hold that down for 3 seconds. So right now I'm in light on, tap it once, now I'm in dark on. So now, if we're too far, if the part's too far away, we're not going to get an output. If the part's too close, we're not going to get an output, because again, it's negative 11 to 11 still. But if we're in that sweet spot between negative 11 and 11, we'll get an output. So if the part passes through and it sees it, output, output. But if for something gets off, or if the part's not there, it's not going to see it. If it's too far this way, not going to see it. If it's just the background, not going to see it. But every time this passes in that perfect spot, which was right about here, we'll get an output. Now, if you want to get back out of datum mode, all you have to do is just set it again. So let's go back to that original background suppression mode. Hold this down 3 seconds on the background. Oops. 1, 2, 3. The orange light for datum went back off. We're back in just normal setting.